we're just about ready. So it gives me great pleasure to welcome up to the stage from Microsoft, Alex Simons, ladies and gentlemen.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Alex. Thank you. When Andy emailed and said, hey, what do you think about coming to Identiverse this year and presenting? We're going to be in person. And I was like, oh, what? We're going to be in person? This will be my first talk in front of a big crowd in over 3 years. I'm so excited. In fact, I kind of feel like this. I'm like a teenager or something going to their first high school dance. I mean, oh my God, it's so exciting. It's really cool to be back. I'm so happy to have all of you here. Thank you for spending your time with us at Identiverse. I'm a huge fan, huge believer in open standards. If any of you have seen me speak at Identiverse before, you know that this is one of the main things I like to really focus on. And so I always want to start and talk about, hey, we had another amazing year in the world of identity open standards. I really want to thank all of the people here in the room, but also all the people all around the world who put so much time and energy into making sure that we have these kind of foundational standards in place that enable all of us to do our jobs. This year we made progress across an incredible breadth of open standards work, but I'm particularly excited about the work going on in the decentralization world. So much progress in terms of decentralized identities, verified credentials, and then all of the work to kind of bridge between the OpenID Connect world, the OAuth world, and the decentralized world, so that we don't end up with a split. We end up with an ability to bridge between these two worlds. It's just fabulous work. But the thing I thought was maybe the most exciting in the open standards world this year was the work around passkeys. Now, for the first time ever in the industry, we have all of the OS providers, all of the device providers, all of the browser providers, all agreeing on one set of secure authentication standards, all at the same time. I just couldn't believe that we managed to pull it all together. I want to thank everybody here who contributed to that. It took an incredible army of people, years and years, to get to the point where we could finally get everyone on board. This, I think, is going to really change the industry and get us to the point where, yes, usernames and passwords really are a thing of the past because it's just going to be built into every device. Now, obviously, we always have more work to do. We want to make sure that these become even more high assurance, and that we have ways of making sure that we know exactly who the user is when they say they are, but it's an incredible breakthrough, and I can't wait to see all of the OSs, browsers, and applications begin to support it later this year. Now, today, though, I want to focus on almost a shift I've seen coming in the industry and really kind of lay out what I think about as kind of the next 5 to 10 years worth of interesting open standards work ahead of us. Now, if you think back to before COVID, right, most large organizations had kind of a 2-year, maybe 2.5-year digital transformation roadmap they had laid out, and they were going to systematically go about empowering their employees to work remotely and reinventing their businesses, and it was going to be amazing. And then COVID hit, and bam, we took all of that innovation and hustled like mad, and over the course of essentially 2 months, finished it all, right? We had no idea that the industry could move that quickly. We sent every employee home. We empowered them to get work done. We adopted all kinds of new technologies and new approaches we never had before. It just showed you in a crisis, I mean, we really did take a good advantage of this crisis, right? And jammed a whole bunch of innovation in really fast. It's amazing that what people were able to accomplish when they needed to in a very short time frame. But that puts us in this interesting situation. So this is me presenting at Identiverse, I think 7, maybe 8 years ago. Nearly everything I talked about in this presentation and in this slide particularly now is actually a reality. And if you think about like the Fortune 500, 90% of the Fortune 500 have already adopted a huge part of this and are well on their way to completing their digital transformation journeys. Lots more work to do still, but this is a real thing. It's happening everywhere, right? And when I stood on stage and said the cloud was going to be the center of identity going forward, people were like, who is this crazy guy? Right? Like, so just amazing how far we've come. But I think now that means it's time for us to start thinking about, as an industry, hey, where are we going next? How do we get coordinated and think about the next big set of opportunities? And how do we help organizations all around the world become even more successful? So when I talk to our customers, I hear lots and lots of people with amazing success stories around how they've empowered their employees. Their employees can work remotely with all kinds of new digital tools using zero trust models that they've never been able to do before. And what I hear is attention and energy now shifting into a very different use of technology, really focused on rewiring the way companies fundamentally work. How do we interoperate with our vendors and our suppliers? How do we connect directly with our customers? How do we smooth all of our distribution chains? How do we build products that are digital and are sending signals back to us? Like, how do we interconnect everything and really reinvent the whole way that we do business and provide value in the world? That's a much more fundamental and, I think, exciting shift even than empowering our employees was. But it really takes a different kind of approach to identity than what we've been doing recently. So if you think about, I think of the current era as the identity as the control plane, right? Where you have centralized control systems that we all call to and check and make sure, okay, is this okay for this person to do this thing at this point, and send them on their way with their sessions. That works great in a lot of employee and partner scenarios, but as you start thinking about fundamentally rewiring the whole economy, it's just not going to hold up. We need a new model. We need to extend this model even further. And I think of that as essentially the infusion of identity into everything. As every device becomes smart, as everybody becomes interconnected closer and works more collaboratively with their customers and their partners, as more and more data is flowing in, we need this identity to be infused everywhere and to have lots and lots more interconnections on the edge and directly between humans and devices and devices and devices and software, so that we don't always have to round trip back to a cloud service. Now, this doesn't mean that those big investments we're making today in our identity systems are obsolete. In fact, really we want a system where we can interconnect across this whole matrix of the trust fabric, that those directories and identity systems play an important role, but we need a much more distributed, much more decentralized architecture model that they can plug into and become a key player in along with everything else. So I think of this as the identity trust fabric. And entering that era of the identity trust fabric where it's distributed, interconnected, and highly intelligent, that's where I think the next 5 to 10 years of really interesting innovation and work for all of us across the industry are. And of course, to do this, we also need to make sure that as we head into this new era, we address the challenges of the current era. So if you think about many of the problems we've had where identity has now become the center of an awful lot of cybercrime and attacks, how do we make sure that we build systems that are inherently self-healing, that they know how to collaborate across systems to protect themselves, and that we are really great at sharing attack data and risk data so that systems can self-heal? Of course, we also want to make sure that as we build our new identity systems, they don't do some of the terrible things that our current identity systems do in terms of being almost like surveillance enabling, right? Like we want to build identity systems that inherently are good for humans, that protect their privacy, and let them do amazing things without worrying about some set of large tech companies like us or others watching everything that they do and monitoring them and trying to monetize them. And then lastly, we really do have to recognize, kind of almost like Andre was saying in his talk yesterday, that look, individual countries, right, have a lot of interest in making sure that their citizens are protected, that their systems are protected, and their business critical data is protected in a world where there's decreasing levels of trust between regions and countries, unfortunately. So we need an architecture that enables us to respect those regional differences in data sovereignty laws, in who expects which kind of data centers to be running where, what kind of security people expect, and to do that, though, and still keep everything interconnected so that we can collaborate across the whole world. So very, very different set of architectures, I think, required to do this. I think the decentralized identity work is one of the key pillars that's going to enable us to do this. The progress here this year has been amazing. I think, though, before we get too far into this, we always need to back up and make sure that we are thinking about, hey, how do we make sure this is good for humanity? We don't want to build a system that's not. And so making sure that we are grounded in a core set of principles, that we make sure that this is always secure and trustworthy, that it's very privacy protecting, and that it's in the control of the human, that it's inclusive and fair and easy to use, that it includes things like supervisability that we sometimes forget, like children, their parents need to be able to supervise them. Sometimes as people get older, they need help and assistance. We need to make sure we support that as well. And of course, in the world today, we don't want to build any system where we don't understand the complete environmental impact of the system that we're building and make sure that we minimize the impact and that it makes sense in the world. So we need to really keep a broad set of principles in place and make sure as we design these new systems that they adhere to all of these. So let's talk quickly. I just want to walk you through some ideas about what I think this new future could be like. So let me introduce you to Angus. Angus is a consultant. He works at course at Tradewinds. Let's just walk through a normal day, maybe for what Angus might be like 5 years from now. So first of all, Angus, as he goes to work, he can use a verified credential to scan in to the turnstile and get into work. This, I think, is one of the first key breakthroughs we want to make sure is that our new digital identities are good in the physical world as well as in the digital world. Once he gets to work, he's got a new customer, right? His new customer, Contoso, has some security requirements they need him to do for training before he can go work there. So he can do his online training and get a certification that he's going to store in his wallet that, hey, he passed his training and he's ready to go work at Contoso. And he can even apply online to Contoso to get his credentials, right? So he can prove that he's an employee of Tradewinds, he can prove that he's supposed to be on this project, and he can prove that he's got the verified credential for the training he was supposed to complete and get issued back a credential that says, hey, yeah, you can come be a vendor at Contoso. So then the next day when he goes to Contoso, he can just check in and show them, oh, hey, you know what? I'm from Tradewinds, I'm a verified vendor, and they're just going to let him in, let him connect to the network, do things like that. And then, he has a great meeting, gets a lot of work done, and in fact can even maybe online then go check in for his hotel room and prove that, hey, he gets the Contoso discount, and maybe use a service like Clear to even prove exactly who he is remotely and check in for his hotel room. We want all of these things to be possible, right? To be able to bridge the digital and the real world, to do it in a way where the user is in control of all their information, where they're consciously having to choose to release it for use and know how it's going to be used, right? We think all of these things are really important in enabling this new world that we want to go to. And then lastly, this is my favorite, in fact, lastly, at the end of the day, when Angus is done and he's in his hotel, he can go through and he can see every single place that all of his identity information was used. And who did he give permissions for what kinds of things? And hopefully here he can even exercise his GDPR rights and say, I don't want the hotel to know any more about me. Let's pull my rights back. Or I don't want the tracking system the trading system to know that I passed. I've got my credentials, right? So being able to do all of this in one location under the control of the human, we think is a really important thing. And all of this can be enabled with the right set of open standards. So with that, let me bring Christina Yasuda out. Christina is on our Open Standards team, and she's going to demo for us. This isn't as far away as you think. We've managed to get a whole bunch of cool stuff working that Christina's going to show you.
Thanks, Alex. So demo time, yeah? Can you please show the laptop screen, please? Awesome. So super excited to show you the demo how users can use standards compliant wallets of their choice to present verifiable credentials and get access to the resources. So verifiable credentials are a collection of attributes issued to the subject and owned by the subject. Admins configure access packages. They bundle resources that they want to give access to users in internal or external organizations. So let's see. I work at Global Modern Services, and we got contracted by a company called FimDev. So an admin at FimDev had created an access package so that I can start doing my job. At Global Modern Services, we use a wallet built by Workday. So I'm going to click Request on the left slide, request an access to an access package. I'm going to open a Workday wallet, scan a QR code, oops, It's requesting access to my verifiable credential stored in the wallet. I trust FIMDEF. I need access to the resources. I'm going to click Share Credential. Success. And on the access package side, let me refresh. I click Request Access, and ta-da! I got access to the resources I need. Now I can start working. Can we please add device 2 to the screen? Oh, never mind. Okay, so a year later, now I work for a company called Friday Health Plans. It's the real, actually existing health insurance company. And again, we got contracted by FIMDEF. Is the second device coming up? The iPhone? Oh, do I need to? Wait, why is the...
If you're wondering if it's a real demo or not.
It's not recorded. Sorry, can you please bring up the iPhone? Apologies, got disconnected. Wonderful, yes. So at Friday Health Plans, we use a wallet built by Ping Identity. So again, on the self-service, I'm going to click Request Access to another access package. I'm going to refresh so I can see QR code requesting me to present verifiable credential. On my iPhone, I'm going to open Ping Identity Wallet, click Scan QR code. Again, I see the request to present the credential. All I have to do is click Yes. I trust FIMDEF, Face ID, credential is being shared to FIMDEF. It's being verified. Again, let me refresh the screen. I click Request Access. And again, I got access to another access package. So let's recap what we just saw. In the first flow, user used a wallet built by Workday to get access. In the second flow, user used wallet built by Ping Identity to get access to the resources. And FIMDEF did not have to do any custom integration to enable both scenarios. Isn't this powerful? This is possible because all three companies used the same set of open standards. Oh, and by the way, the same flow would work also with Microsoft Authenticator. This is the power of standards. This is how standards drive interoperability. Can you please go back to the PowerPoint? Thank you. We've been working really hard with Workday, Ping Identity, IBM, Matter, and Microsoft to realize this interoperable presentation of verifiable credentials. If you want to enhance your application, your implementation to also be interoperable, can we please go back to the slides?
Yep. Can we get the PowerPoint deck up, please?
Yeah, the PowerPoints, sorry.
No, it's gone. There it is.
Yeah, you see, please scan the QR code or go to aka.ms/vcinterop, where you find an interoperability profile that you can start implementing right away to be interoperable. But the work remains, yeah? So if you want to join us in this journey of interoperability, please consider joining Claims and Credentials Working Group at Decentralized Identity Foundation, or come talk to us. Thank you. Back to you, Alex.
I love it when the people who actually do the work get to show it off. Pretty cool, right? So, hey, but as we're thinking about this world of the fabric, we need to make sure we don't just think about the humans, we need to make sure we think about the software and the developers. So let me introduce you to a developer, Madeline. Madeline works at a supply chain company, and because she's a cool modern dev, she wants to write things in Kubernetes, so she's not tied into any specific cloud service. But she's got a problem today in that, hey, how do I hook these things up and get them to work across services? But if she's using the trust fabric as we imagine it and using the set of SPIFFE standards, she'll be able to easily access resources in AWS, Azure, and GCP, all from one containerized application without having to worry about where it's deployed. So if you're someone like Madeline, when you do your latest check-in, you don't think about, oh, hey, how do I update my code to make sure it works with Azure? You just post, you go to GitHub, you run your CI/CD pipeline, and everything should just get updated for you. And because you're using these modern authentication approaches and because you're using the Trust Fabric, you don't even have to worry about the secrets in your code anymore. They're just gone, right? The system manages all of your secrets in for you. So as a developer, you don't have to worry about, oh, did I just check something into GitHub that might get me in trouble? We also want to make sure that we're making the world better for admins and people who work in SecOps, right? So one of the key standards here is the SSE Shared Signals and Events Standard. And we want to make sure that as part of the Trust Fabric, if you're using the right libraries, your application can participate in the whole community sharing threat data with each other and making sure to help protect across that community. So if you've got an app like Mavelines, which is really awesome, of course, and all of a sudden you see your application sees way, way, way too much data being exfiltrated by a specific user or from a certain IP address, you could alert your identity provider. They could then alert all of the applications that are attached to that identity provider and tell everybody, hey, terminate those sessions, send that user back, let's reevaluate the security credentials and make sure that we really have somebody there who isn't a hacker. And you can do this not just across a single set of applications at any provider. You can imagine this at a whole community level, a group of interest-related organizations. This kind of cooperation across the whole community is the only way that we have a chance of getting ahead of the bad guys. Because the bad guys cooperate, we need to make sure that we're all cooperating, sharing data together as well. And of course, all of that can be exported out to your SIEM, and the security guys can go see what the heck happened afterward. Now, all of these things, for us as an industry to make this kind of thing possible, we have to make the right sets of bets together on the right open standards. I think of these 4 areas as kind of the pillars of open standards: the authentication work across the WebAuthn and the FIDO Alliance, all the cool work on SSE and OAuth Depop, the decentralization work, lots and lots of cool work in decentralization, and then finally the ways that we automate interconnection between systems. These key standards are the ones that we're putting a ton of weight behind. We hope that you will join us and the whole community in moving these ahead and getting them both completed and into production. So with that, I want to close out and say, look, I think we're headed into a very exciting new era, this era of the Identity Trust Fabric. It's not a reinvention of today, but what it is an extension and an infusion of identity into everything. We need to make sure that as we invent this era, that we inherently make it so that it is trustworthy, that it has built-in privacy and control, it's inherently multi-device, multi-cloud, hybrid, it is self-securing, and that it's based on open standards. It is the only way as an industry I think we can achieve the kind of future where we enable all of our customers to reinvent their organizations and maximize the opportunity that they have to really become completely digital companies. So with that, I always like to end with a small set of, hey, here's some ideas for things you could do next. The first thing I would say is, hey, get ready for passkey. If you're an identity vendor or you're an application ISV, please make sure you're investigating passkey and learning all about it. If you're anybody in the room, hey, if you want, you can issue and verify a verified credential today. There are many different ways to do it. We have a service that does it. Our partners have services that do it. Check it out. Learn all about verified credentials. That's going to be an incredibly important part of the future of identity. Make sure that as you are designing your identity roadmaps and getting your application teams lined up, that you are pointing to the key foundational standards and that you are thinking about how you incorporate those in your RFPs as well as in your development standards inside your company. And then I always like to remind everybody, if you haven't turned on MFA, oh, please, please, please turn on MFA. Please turn on MFA, but even better, if you can, go passwordless. You'll find that your employees are happier and you're even more secure. So with all that, thank you so much for your time. There's a ton of great other sessions following up on this. These are all up on the screen. If you want to dive into any of these areas, I would encourage you to attend one of those sessions. And thank you so much. It's been wonderful to be here.
Thanks, Alex. Thank you. Alex had no idea which side of the stage I was going to come up from. He's like, Andy's supposed to come out, but where is he? Really exciting to hear about that cross-industry, cross-community collaboration that's happening, and to actually see it. Now, if you all thought it was nerve-wracking to stand up here and talk to this audience, doing a live demo is a whole nother level. So big round of applause, please, both for Christina and for Alex.